Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of our CrossFit Blackfire Fat Loss Challenge for August 2023. I hope you've seen the first part, the first video. This is going to be the second video. So I was going to try and stay away from jargon as much as possible and going in depth into the science, but unfortunately this is very important to what we're going to be doing, and we are going to have to try and understand what insulin is and what it does to our body. Insulin is a hormone that is secreted by your body every time you eat something. So usually it does not get secreted when you eat fat, but when you have anything that is carbs, carbohydrates or protein, your body produces insulin. Now it's a very important hormone. I'm not going to try and vilify it, but it is very strongly associated with fat accumulation. So we're going to have to understand how it works and what we can do to minimize it. So this is what happens when you eat carbohydrates or protein. Glucose is produced in your blood, which leads to your body producing insulin. Now the insulin goes to your fat cells, it attaches itself to the receptor on each fat cell, and the fat cell opens up to be able to store the excess energy which is there in the body. The flip side, and what's important to know, is that when insulin is not present and not around, the fat cell is able to open up and allow the fat to come out of the fat cell, and that gives you energy, and that's how you burn fat. So it's very important to note that you should not have insulin around or a spike in insulin in your blood when you want to access these fat cells. Next, we got to understand what is insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. Now, both are opposite sides of the same coin. If you're insulin sensitive, that's very good. If you're not insulin sensitive, then you are probably insulin resistant, and that's very bad. So let me make a quick graph here. On the y-axis we have insulin. So the higher you go, the higher the insulin. On your x-axis is time. So let's imagine an insulin sensitive person has a meal. As soon as he eats, the insulin goes up very slowly, stays up for a little time, and then comes back fast down to normal levels. Now the flip side, if you are insulin resistant, which is extremely bad, your body produces a lot of insulin very fast, it spikes really high, and it takes a long time to come down to normal levels. Now if you remember what we said earlier, that if your insulin does not come down, you cannot access your fat cells and the fat inside the fat cells for energy, and therefore you cannot burn fat. So how do we control insulin? Number one, through exercise. Now exercise should not be thought of as a means of burning more calories. You should be thinking of exercise as a mean to make more muscle and more strength. So if you're doing high intensity workouts like CrossFit and doing a lot of resistance training, you will build more muscle, and more muscle means that you will be absorbing a lot more glucose. There are only two storage sites for glucose in your body. One is your liver and the second is muscles. So the more muscle you have, the more glucose storage and the less effect of glucose on your blood and your body. The next way to control your insulin is through nutrition. Now this is huge and we're going to get in depth into it in a bigger video. But for now, you have to know, since we already did a no sugar month, sugar is what really leads to a spike in insulin, and we really want to avoid that. You also want to have a lot more protein. Protein is the good kind of insulin spike, which is small and shuttles all the protein into your muscle. We want to avoid alcohol as much as possible. Fruit juice, which has no fiber. We want to have foods which are high in fiber. So definitely we need a lot more to talk about this, and I'm going to have to make a video with the help of Coach Ashish. So coming up soon. Let's move on to the third way of reducing insulin. That's by time restricted feeding, fasting, or as I tell a lot of people, no snacking. The whole funda behind this fasting or time restricted feeding or not having any snacks is trying to control your insulin by having these small spikes through the day and not having anything, no food whatsoever during the times when you're not eating. So trying to keep everything down to a small minimum amount of insulin spikes. What happens is, if you keep snacking, you have those sharp bursts of insulin. Before your insulin can come down, you have a small snack, again your insulin spikes up, and then if you have another snack, again within half an hour, again your insulin goes up. So this is extremely bad for us, and the best way to control this, I have found, is through incorporating fasting in your regime. Okay, so let's just keep this video as short as possible. That's enough for this one. Look forward to the next one. If you have any questions, as always, you can like ask questions on our group. That's what the group is there for.